Okay, in this video we're going to talk about Blender and do a little something in Blender. Ultimately, we will make something kind of like this animation. There you have the Earth and the Moon going around the Earth. It's not 100% accurate in terms of the speed, but okay, so first you need to have Blender downloaded and installed, and if I recall correctly, that requires Windows. So we're on Windows. Here's Blender. Alright, first off, a few things about basic commands to get around. Let's keep some notes. Alright, by default you will see a bunch of stuff, and in the middle is what's called the 3D view. If you're looking at the 3D view, then you can look at the world, and left clicking changes this little bullseye, but it doesn't select things. You have a square there, or a cube there by default. If you want to select it, it's right click. If I want to collect here, this is the view. So what we're thinking about here is that the camera, there's a camera here that's viewing the world. This is the world and this is the camera. You can switch, so when you make the video, what you're actually going to see is what the camera sees, and you can switch to that by pressing 0. So this is what the camera would actually see right now. If I press back 0 again, it goes back to this view. 3D view, press 0 to see what camera sees. Right click, selects things. If I want to move this, then I can drag it, and if I let go, it's still moving it. If you right click, it goes back to where it was. You left click to confirm. Right click, drag to move, left click to confirm. Of course, if I'm moving it on the screen here, that's a two-dimensional thing. So it's just moving it in some two-dimensional plane right now, and that depends on where this bullseye is and how the world is rotated. So I can rotate by middle clicking and dragging around. Rotate view by middle clicking and dragging. Alright. And there's different, so now I can move it down if I want to, or up, and when I'm in this view. If I want to go back to here, then I can make sure that I can actually see my cube. Alright, on the right here we have the properties. So this is called the properties window, and each one of these sections of the screen, this is a section of the screen here, here's a section right here, here's a section right here, and there's this two sections down here. Each one you can change into different views. By default they'll be like this. We have the cube, and right now we're looking at the properties of the cube and also of the world. Each one of these, if you mouse over, it'll tell you something about what happens when you click it. Now if I render, then that gives me a picture of what we actually see. And there's some parameters here about rendering, the resolution of an image that's going to be produced, some stuff about performance. If you get down here to output, right now it's outputting a PNG file in /tmp. C:/tmp. Let's see. Tell it to render. It should be rendering into there. Just a minute. Okay, it's only rendering if I press the animation button. So I want to talk about the animation. For a second, down here we have the timeline view, and it indicates that there are going to be a total of, let's see, starting at slide number 1 and ending at slide number 10. There's going to be 10 frames. If I play this, nothing happens because I haven't put any movement in. But if I look down here, I'm outputting to a PNG, and if I say animation, it's going to do the animation, which isn't actually anything. But I can go and look at my output directory, which is /tmp, and I see a bunch of pictures. So it has one slide, one picture for each frame. Those are the images. And if I would change that to, say, an AVI, click the animation again, then it creates this movie, which is 10 frames at 24 frames per second. So that's about half a second. Alright, this is how you tell it to actually produce. So if you say render, it'll just produce what the current thing looks like on the screen. If you say animation, then it'll actually make the images or make the movie. Now I'll click here to go back to 3D view. Alright, the next one here, I'm not going to do anything with. I'm not going to do anything with these either. There's tons of options here. We're only going to look at a few different things. The world, we can change the background color. If we're looking over here, we had sort of a gray color. We could do, say, some sort of a blue. For the horizon, zenith is up above. So we can leave that as black. Ambient color, maybe something else. And if we tell it to blend, then it'll go from horizon to zenith. Let's see what that looks like. Render. Okay, so you can see it's kind of darker blue on the bottom and lighter blue on the top now. And you could change that to be whatever we want it to be. Of course, there's many more options. Alright, the main ones that we're going to be working with is this object properties, material properties, and texture. So let's take a look at the object properties first. You have a location, and rotation, and a scale. Right now it's on a, look in the 3D grid, it's on, each one of these is like 1 unit, and you can see the radius of the cube is 1 unit. That's what I put here. So if I change that, then it would be, I'm middle clicking to rotate around here, get different views of this thing. Okay, and if I rotate this, then it'll be this many degrees about the x-axis. Here's the x-axis right here. It says the red arrow. So if you imagine taking the cube and twisting it along the red arrow, can play around with. There's 90 degrees. Okay, so 90 degrees isn't going to look any different. Let's do 45 degrees. There's a 45 degree rotation about the red arrow. So you picture taking the red arrow and twisting it 45 degrees. Go back to 0 here. The Y is the green arrow here. There's 45 degrees of rotation that way. Z is the blue arrow, and there's 45 degrees of rotation about there. And you could manually put in, so I can drag this, and you could manually put in a location as well. So now it's centered about the origin. That's my cube. If I want it to not look gray, then there's two things you can do. You can edit the material and you can edit a texture. The material, the easiest thing to do is just to set a color, and there's two different colors. The main one is called diffuse, and if we want it to be red, you just pick a red color, and this says what the intensity is, with one being the brightest. The specular is what color reflection would be. If I change that to blue, it would have kind of a blue tint in the reflection, and then I could change this to be something lower to make it less of a shiny ball kind of look there. It's typical to leave this as white. Okay, so now we have a cube with color, and if we go back and look at it, there's some color. There are many more options, which we won't look at right now. The next one is a texture. So you can take and make this look like something. Let's say we want to make it look like bricks. You can go and find an image of bricks, and let's say we want a single brick. Say we want just one brick, and maybe like this here. Okay, if we want to repeat this, we'll save that image. Then we want to go down and tell it to use that. Okay, so I'm on the material part, and I click on the type of texture. I'm going to add a new one. Right, so there's lots of things you could do here, but this is just one thing. Alright, there's some built-in textures that we can look at. But so let's say we take the okay, what I've done here is over here you can go and take one of these. So when you first click on this, you'll see the material textures. You can add one and make it whatever you want. Okay, if you render, you can see that it's still red, but it has that kind of pattern on it. Okay, so the way a texture works is it kind of works together with whatever color you have. If I just wanted it to look like this, then I would put white on, because it's sort of like you're taking this kind of like the minimum of this image and the color there. Alright, so let's just say we go back and make this white. And you can see it gives you a preview of what it would look like. There it is, and that's because there's pink somewhere still. Let's just ignore that. Okay. Alright, so you can give this as a texture. You can also give your own image as a texture. And that will be over here. If you click over here on the materials, you can add your own. Click on image or movie, open, and we can open that brick. Okay. And we'll get rid of this other one. Let's do this here again. And see what the preview looks like. Not much there. Okay, so this looks like a brick, a single brick. But let's say that, so you could change that. By changing some properties here, but let's just leave it like that for now. Okay, so this looks something like a brick. That's probably all I want to do with that part right now. Now let's say we want to actually move this around. We'll go back to 3D view. Okay, if you scroll on your middle scroll, if you have a middle scroll wheel, it goes in and out. Alright, so let's say that we would just want this to move. The way you do, one of the ways to do this is by keyframing. So if I click to say that I'm on frame 1, there's animation here. If you're in the 3D view, there's animation, and you can insert a location keyframe. So location keyframe says this is where it is in frame 1. Now if I wanted to go somewhere else, let's say in frame 5, let's say I wanted to go this way. That would be along the X direction. So I'd set the location to be 3. Alright, then I would just insert a new location keyframe. Then if I wanted to go even further up onto the 10 spot, let's say I wanted to go up to 6, and I would insert a location keyframe there. If you play it, then that shows what it'll look like. And if I go over here and click on animation, it'll actually build it. Takes a while. This is an old slow computer. Go over here, and here's the video file. Alright, half a second long. Okay, so one of the main things to do is you just set key points where things will be, and it'll interpolate in between. And things you can do is you can set the location, you can rotate the object, You can do both location and rotation and other things. Let's take a look at the camera. Up here, you can click on the camera. There's the camera, and it shows the direction it's pointing and where it is. It has a location just like other objects. If I change this to be something else, let's change that back. So let's see. Here's the X direction right here. If I change this to 8.5, that moves the camera a little bit that way. And the rotation controls where it's pointing. So right now it's this. If I set it to 0, 0, 0, then that would be pointing straight down. Alright, wherever we want to have the camera pointed, we can change that with the rotation, and the scale controls the zoom. So there, that's right. That would be different. That's pretty much it for I want to show you about the camera. And then we have the light. Alright, the light is important because that controls being able to see things. If there's no light, so if I get rid of this light and then I go and render, it doesn't look the same, right? I just see some background and I see some kind of shape. The reason is because there's no light. If I look at the cube properties, there's going to be somewhere that says it has, or the world, here's the world, environment lighting, ambient, somewhere it's going to say that there's ambient lighting of a certain amount even if there's no light. Alright, let's put the light back in. I'm just going to undo my change there. Let's see what it looks like. So right now this is what things look like right now. If I move the light, right now it's kind of up there on top. I can move it down. Remember, it's right click to select, right click and drag to move, but then you have to left click to actually confirm. Alright, let's render that. That certainly looks different. Because the camera is not pointing in the right direction. This was like 63. That's fine. Alright, so that looks different. The light's coming from this side instead of from the top. The most important thing about the light is where it is, and then for lights you have this thing here which says you have a bunch of options here. For a lamp, it has a distance, maximum distance, just like light. You know, your light has a maximum distance, so this is after 30 units it would be not lighting anything up anymore. You can have it be more intense or less intense. If I go in and render that brighter. And there's different types of light. A point light is like a lamp. The sun doesn't have a maximum distance, it just keeps going forever. That won't really have much effect here. Right, okay, so the sun is also parallel rays. The rays of light are parallel, so it sort of lights everything up from the same direction. Pay no attention to that. Alright, so there's different options you can have for the type of light here. Alright, that's pretty much all I want to show you about basic controls and getting around. Let's take a look at this file that made this animation. Alright, so instead of a cube, definitely we're going to have spheres. And the type of object, I put the Earth in the middle there. The type of object is called a UV sphere, and you would add that by going to add a mesh and a UV sphere. Okay, there it is. Some properties of it. It has smooth shading. That's so it doesn't look too blocky. The background color is blue, but if we look at the image itself, it has the Earth there, and I got that from an image like this, but for the Earth. I have one like that for the Moon. And if you look over here, you'll see that there's the blue background and not a lot of specular reflection, so that's like pool ball shininess. And here I have a texture that I clicked to be an image, and it's an image like this that gets mapped onto a sphere. I then set it to be coordinates projection from a sphere, and there's better ways to finally control this so that to make sure it's accurate, because here you see there's a problem. Alright, but just in my little animation you won't notice. That's what the Earth looks like. And if you look in my animation, it's rotating. And what I did for that, let me click over to the 3D view again. On the first frame, I have the location is basically 0, and it's not rotated at all. Then I put a keyframe on the 24th. These yellow bars here indicate that there's a keyframe. On the 24th frame, I put a rotation of 180 degrees in the Z, about the Z direction. So the Z direction is up here. If you rotate 180 degrees, that's like rotating this way. So it starts out here, 180 degrees is this way. In the 23, I was trying to do the tilt of the Earth. I don't know if that actually worked. And at 48, I just made my movie 48 frames long. I have 360, so I rotate first 180 about the Z, and then all the way around. All I had to do was put those two in, and it interpolates in between. And the Earth isn't moving, it's the center of the movie. So that's it. You put the right picture on, and then it's a rotation. For the Moon, here's the Moon. There's the background color is white. I suppose I could put the background color as white for the Earth too, but it turned out alright. Background color is white, and there's a texture that came from this image, which I just looked for. I just searched for Moon Mercator, the type of, when you put a sphere onto a flat map, there's going to be some inaccuracies, and there's different ways to do that. One of them is called Mercator, so I was just searching for something that looked like that. Alright, so there's the Moon. And what does the Moon do in my image? It rotates from one side of the screen to the other. On my keyframes for the Moon then, I have starts off at 0, 6, 0. Alright, here's 0, 0, 0 would be in the middle, and 6 in the y direction. So the positive y direction is over here, that's this way. Okay, in the movie it was looking like this. Okay, so there's the positive y direction, and there's 6. And it's not rotated at all. Okay, and here at halfway through frame 24, I'm at -6 in the x direction. If I just look at my axis here, positive x is that way, so -6 is this way, and 0 on the y now, so it's just this way. And the rotation I have is 90 degrees about the z. I could have done it like this. Okay, so 90 degrees in the z direction. I have another keyframe at the end that says now I want to be over here, and I just need to figure out what is over there. The green line, I'm going to be on the green line, that's the y-axis. I'm going to be -6 on the y, the positive, so it points in the positive direction. And then I had the moon, let's see, here it should have been, so this was 90 degrees. This should be 180. Okay, so this was 180, and the rotation that it was doing was 001. That's just in the z direction, just the way I did that. All right, and if I let's say that I animate, I'm not sure if this looks right here. Animate. There it goes. What you would really do, if you're going to be accurate, is every time the Earth rotates around once, the moon would go 1/30th around. So it takes 30 days roughly for the moon to get around the Earth. Also, it's not exactly a circle. Alright, and then I wanted to make sure that the shadow that the moon makes on the Earth wouldn't be too large. And for that to happen, I moved the sun back. If you look back this way, the camera is back here. If you click on the camera, I moved it back there. If you click on my lamp, which I called sun, you can rename. Click on rename there. So the sun I put way back, and the further back I put it, the shadow would be a little bit smaller. Alright, and then if I just go over here and click render, then I see what it looks like. If I click on animation, it will go ahead and make that, and I was choosing to do H.264. First I tried MPEG, and that didn't work on this computer. Alright, so you click animation, and that shows up. It shows up here on the screen, and also shows up in this file. If you want to do a more realistic looking, cooler one, then you search for things, and here's one, although they're assuming that you already know some things. Okay, so we had an example of Earth, Moon. Look in. Okay, I'll put a link here. I'll put it up. And then for better simulation, look at that, or other, or search for other video demonstrations. Alright, there's tons. Alright, I think that's what I want to show you in Blender. Basically, that's it. It can do tons of stuff. And it can be confusing, but watching videos and doing exactly what they're doing in the video is a good way to learn. Call that it for this video.